Good evening, everyone. In a recent essay written by Richard Haass, one of the most prominent geopolitical thinkers of our era, and also prominent writer and author with the Foreign Affairs and Council for Foreign Relations. So he wrote a piece in Foreign Affairs recently in which he made four important points in the context of the protest for regime change in Iran. So in this context, it is very important to understand what he said. The first thing he said is that regime change is easier to initiate than to complete. It is completely known because protest against a very authoritarian regime are quite common in the recent history, especially after the post Second World War. But only a fraction of these regime changes have become successful. Uh, because mainly because here Richard Haas says that oftentimes they do not have a constructive plan for post regime change scenario, a credible leader or a legitimate political program that could give hope to the masses who got engaged in the protest or revolts as well. So oftentimes those who engage in the revolt itself, those who engaged in the protest itself, become the first enemies of the post regime change government, because in the absence of a credible political program, the new regime becomes an enemy of the manifesto or the political program of the regime change scenario. That's where many of the revolts against an oppressive regime, authoritarian regime gets failed. That's the first most important point that Richard Haas makes. The second point he makes is that the historical record is mixed, not uniformly negative. There is still hope that some of the regimes may become successful. Take the example of the Islamic Revolution in Iran itself. The Shah's regime in 1979 was toppled even when Shah was supported wholeheartedly with all the might of the United States at that time, which did not anticipate the such a force of protest against Shah's regime. The post regime change scenario was quite hopeful because Iran became a stable and a solid state, and it has survived even 8 long years of war with Iraq and many attempts by United States, CIA to topple its regime and assassinate its chief architect. So there is still hope, Iranian history itself says. And the third important thing that Richard Haas makes here is that uh, containment and conditional engagement often outperform forced transformation. It means that the attempts to contain the protests, the regime change protest, and conditional engagement with the protesters to negotiate and to diffuse the scope and intensity of the protest sometimes matter more than forced transformation. So, in many occasions, the force used by the regime may not be successful in the long run, which the Iranian regime is at present using. So, without meaningfully engaging in dialogue, negotiations, and the hope of transformation of the regime according to the aspirations of the protesters, there is very little hope for the regime. Every regime, every political system must in itself build uh, the scope, the chances, the opportunities for transformation according to the changing nature of the economic ecosystem of the country or the world, and also the changing aspirations of the people themselves. At last, even the most oppressive regimes rule in the name of the people themselves. So when the people speak loudly, even the most oppressive regimes have to listen, have to attempt some kind of a transformation. The fourth important point that Richard Haas makes is that Washington, especially the United States administration, must distinguish reacting to organic regime collapse that happens from within the system itself. when people who could not contain their dissatisfaction of the regime come out onto the streets, even to the point of sacrificing their lives and their families in toppling and changing the regime. So that comes organically, and deliberately engineering regime changes. Some regime changes are deliberately engineered by the superpowers during the Cold War. Cold War, either by United States or the United USSR itself. So these regime changes are top down, and they are forced from outside according to the needs and aspirations of the superpowers and the leaders who are leading these superpower nations, and not the people of the nation themselves. So these oftentimes fail. These are the four important considerations one must concern with, one must seriously probe regarding the current situation in Iran, and how and where and to what end the protests are leading. Thank you very much.